Fellow auto detailers, welcome to the show that features interviews with today's most successful auto detailers. This is the Auto Detailing Podcast. Here's your host, Jimbo Balaam.
Welcome to episode 152 of the Auto Detailing Podcast. I'm Jimbo, your host, and today on the show we have a 17-year-old with a detailing company and the head detailer for another company. His name is Jeff Anguil. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, I was encouraged when you reached out to me, and I was even more pumped up to have you on the show, being that you are so young, but making such an impact within your local community and within the detailing industry around there. So much so that people are recognizing it, and more opportunities are coming up from that. But before we kind of dive into exactly what you're doing today and how you've gotten to where you are, besides school, of course, kind of take us back to when did your love affair with cars start? Or when did, kind of the detailing, cleaning car aspect come into play? Take us there.
All right, so it all started probably a couple of years ago. My grandpa is a big detailer and always has been for as long as I can remember. And he recently had bought a Nissan 370Z. And one day I went over to his house to wash windows, and it ended up, I was hanging out in his garage and working on his car and things like that. And I just kind of became fascinated with, all the processes that go into detailing. I used to think it was just you wash a car and that's it. But I realized, I'm always a very mechanically inclined kid. And I love, starting things up and, creating my own business. And it all led into, me doing more research on detailing, eventually getting a loan to start my own business, and then progressing from there to become what I am today.
So what was that first day like? When you think you're going over to Gramps' house to clean the windows, which is actually a really good skill set to have for detailing, and then he's got this new car, and is he asking you to help him clean it? Are you like, oh my gosh, that car's just so beautiful, kind of walk us through how that went down.
So I think it kind of started with, I just liked the idea of cleaning windows. I wasn't getting bored or anything. It's kind of weird to say, but I found it kind of fun. And he had recently bought a new house, and he had the whole 3-car garage, really fancy thing with all the tools and everything. And I was in the garage actually cleaning the windows in there. And at the same time, I'm constantly looking at the car and just admiring everything that's going on in that garage. And I think it just kind of came from that, and what just pushed me that night to go home. And I was like, Mom and Dad, I want to go, let me clean your windows. And I ended up going to AutoZone to pick up a couple of microfibers. And I came home just thinking, man, I got to look up some car detailing stuff. And I did. And I guess that just kind of caused me to get where I am now, is that kind of influx from all that stuff.
Yeah, what's interesting about that is I can kind of relate to that, because as I started my detailing business at 19, so I was a little bit older than you are now, but it kind of stemmed from not cleaning windows, but just keeping my stuff really clean. So as I started to accrue new stuff that wasn't just passed down to me in my family, I wanted to keep it clean. And it was kind of weird. It was this just innate thing in me that I just wanted to keep my own stuff clean that I had purchased or whatever, and that's kind of what led me into cleaning cars. Was I cleaned my car, and the natural progression to clean other people's car for money was a good start. Okay, so where did you go from there then? So you kind of before we go there, one thing I want to touch on is kind of the hustle factor behind what you're doing. How old were you at this point?
I was 14.
Okay, so at 14, most kids aren't really out cleaning windows. They're not really, most 17-year-olds aren't looking for just different opportunities. Heck, I've had a 21-year-old guy helping me work a little bit, and I offered him some bigger opportunities, and he just was whatever. I don't, he didn't really jump on the bandwagon, but it seems like, you're at a young age out there hustling, trying to make things work, looking for opportunities. what is it, or what advice would you give to other people for them to gain that in their own life?
I think part of it is you're born with it. I mean, ever since I was a little kid, I always loved, to go to Home Depot and like look at tools, or I loved to, go mow the lawn and things like that. I always wanted to work for other people, whether it was my family or my parents' friends, things like that. Just always really got into working. And what I'd say is you need to, one, have a good plan. You need to prove to people of a higher authority, that this is possible, because no one's going to hand you over. You need money to start a business, and no one's just going to give it to you unless you have something to back it up. And I think just if you really have a true passion to do something, then it's totally possible. And, everyone's always saying, do what you love and the money will come. And I really think that is true, because, I mean, I started off, cleaning minivans, and now I've worked my way up to exotics. So I think it's just all your mindset on whether or not you can accomplish something.
Yeah, I love that quote, do what you're passionate about and the money will follow. And if you think about that quote, why it's almost a fail-proof way to make money is because if you're passionate about something, you're going to do it to the best of your ability. And you're going to, like you did, you went home and you're going to research it. And a lot of times what I find myself doing, and I'm sure you do the same, is, when you're bored somewhere and you're thumbing through your phone, you're looking at detailing stuff or looking at pictures or researching products. And it's just something that kind of comes natural to you, and I guess for both of us and most of the people listening, it has to deal with cars, so that's cool.
Yeah, and like adding on to that, like at school, we'll be in study hall or something, and my friends, everyone's goofing off, and I'll be sitting there looking at new detail products, and everyone's like, "What's wrong with you?"
Right?
And I'm just saying, I love it. And
right.
So.
And you know what? Another thing that I really liked, I felt like I could really resonate with you. Because I was the same way, and I'm still the same way, of just I'm not afraid to, and I don't care what other people think, if they think I'm weird or whatever, but I'm passionate about cars, and I'm passionate about business, and I'm passionate about helping other people with their businesses. And that kind of started at a young age for me, too. So I wasn't really ever into going out and partying really hard like some of my friends were doing, or even getting into some of the drugs that my friends were doing. Now, whatever your opinion is on, not you specifically, Jeff, but the audience, whatever their opinion is on drugs or whatever, or drug use, that's their own opinion. But my thought was, why am I going to spend my focus on that when I could focus on setting up my future career and future monies, which is what was bringing it back to you, which was really inspiring about you, is like, man, this kid at 17 is already killing it. What's this kid going to look like at 30? You know what I mean? So I love it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, like, even in the summer, I'm always, my friends are all hanging out and blah, blah, blah. And I'm coming late to everything because I'm always, I got to finish this car, or I got to, finish up at work or things like that. And you're crazy. But, I mean, I consider it, I love doing it.
Right. And that's just a bonus. You love doing it, and you're setting up the groundwork for your future, because the normal path that people take is high school, college, and then someone will offer me a job. And that's kind of this whole mindset that this past generation has had, and that's fine. But think about how much more ahead of the curve you will be if while you're doing those things, you're also hustling and making connections. And, by the time your friends are getting out of school, hoping that someone's just going to, pick them up at graduation for this awesome paying job, you will have laid all the groundwork to get an even better job, So I love it. So let's go on from that first day that your grandpa had the Nissan Z, and you went home, decided that you wanted to invest a little bit in a business, and you said the first people you were talking to was your parents?
Yeah. That night I went home and actually started, researching detailing and kind of just looking at what went into it, things like that. And I watched a ton of Larry Casilla's videos, a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he kind of set the groundwork for what I thought I needed. And I went to my parents, and I said, look, can you guys loan me, $1,500 to get this business started? And I laid it all out, and we were on spring break at the time, and my whole family was there, and I was explaining it to everyone, and everyone was going over a business plan with me, and ended up, actually going through. And I just remember all that products and all the tools coming in. It was like Christmas morning.
Yeah.
Everything was coming in. So I think that's just really how I took off from there.
What were, $1,500? That is not a lot of money to start a business. In fact, when you start looking at other types of businesses, even like restaurants or, barbershops or all the different businesses that you can start, a $1,500 investment is nothing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It is money, but what is really awesome about the detailing industry is that you can get started for such a little amount of money. What are some key products that you initially bought with that $1,500?
I went and bought a really nice vacuum, which I thought was kind of an essential, and then a couple, exterior products like wax, couple different polishes and compounds, a Porter cable 7424 XP, which is the safest polisher at the time. So I picked that up, couple of buckets, couple of interior cleaners, and just the basics like brushes, things like that. So everything that I could get a car clean, but nothing that was like a major, like an extractor or steamer or anything.
But it would get you to the point where you could start making more money doing that. Okay. So after that, what's your first car that you did, or who was your first customer, and how did you get them?
First car I did was my mom's truck, 2005 Chevy Suburban at the time. Ooh. And I wanted to just, try everything out, make sure I was doing things correctly. So I did the interior in her car, and then I practiced polishing on my A4 for probably 3 days straight. I was just polishing the whole thing and testing out all the products I had and trying to get the best results. And then from there, I started doing my family's cars. So I did a couple Audis, a couple Mercedes, a couple minivans, and it just kind of was like I was taking on the whole neighborhood.
Right.
So word of mouth, things like that.
Okay. Yeah, I really resonates with my story. Just real quick, for those who don't know, I started with obviously my own cars. And then I stepped up I was working at a restaurant, and I did the manager's car, and then kind of, like an $80 detail real quick. But it kind of, one thing you don't realize after you've been doing it for a while is how nervous you are and how not confident in your services you are. So it's important to do as many cheap or as many, not free, but as many inexpensive details, kind of under-promising, over-delivering as you can possibly do. To build up your confidence. Okay, cool. So, and then during this time, were you working any other jobs or just going to school and detailing?
I was actually working at a country club too, and that started in March of last year, and I was working at the club and kind of juggling that around detailing cars and going to school, and then in the summer. It was just either I was working at the club or I was cleaning cars.
Wow. So, one thing I want to point out is, and one thing I always like to point out, is different and unique opportunities that we can use in just starting out our business to gain new clients. And I'd been thinking about it since we chatted on the phone a few days ago. And I'm like, man, working at a country club is brilliant because people are just, you're in a place where not only you're making money working for the club, but you're usually, when we're talking about a golf course, or a country club, you're dealing with a higher end clientele. Usually there's some membership requirement to be there and to be, a member of that club. But then you have direct access to those upper echelon people that have the expendable cash to spend on a service like detailing. So how would you pitch your service to the members of the club without getting yourself fired?
Sometimes I'd be taking their clubs to their car, and I just, they'd come, whoever it was, they'd be driving a Porsche or an Audi or whatever, and I'd just say, oh, where do you get this detailed? And, and I'd point out like 3 things. Say, look, there's swirl marks here. They didn't take off the dirt here, and they, could have done a better job drying your car here. And they're just like, all right. And I'd hand them a business card and, hope to get lucky and get a call later. So I think that's kind of where I benefited from the club. But also another thing that a lot of people don't realize is a lot of it is your appearance and, the way that you come across to as customers. Like, I'm not a big kid by any means. Like, I hardly look my age. And I come up to someone, driving a $300,000 car, and I'm saying, hey, can I clean your car? They're going to look at me like, are you nuts? So I think it's just kind of the way you have to present yourself and, talk formally with your clients and look nice, dress nice. You can't show up looking like a slob and expect these people to trust you, especially when I'm only 17.
I think it goes beyond that. Just not only being 17, that's just one thing that could work against you, but, it's everything from how our websites look as detailers to how we, like you said, present ourselves when we're trying to sell these details. And it's one thing if you want to sell a car wash, and that's cool because you can get away with looking tacky. But you try and start selling a $600 coating job or a $600 paint correction job, and you look like you're a bum. You're not helping yourself. You may land those jobs, but you're definitely not helping. But I definitely want to play on the being 17 and getting to work on these higher-end cars. What are some barriers that you had to overcome, and how did you overcome those barriers?
The first one was I had to get my hands on at least one. I had to have some sort of credibility, and I actually ended up getting lucky and getting to clean a new Maserati Gran Turismo.
Wow.
And that was kind of, my backup line. Well, do you know what you're doing? Well, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I cleaned a Maserati.
Right.
And, people would be, oh, like, sure. And I'd show them pictures and say, hey, this is what I did, and this is what it looked like before. And be, oh, that's actually pretty impressive. And I think that's how I cleaned a few cars like that, and that ended up allowing me to get that job at Reina Auto, which is the European import shop in Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. And detailing cars there, people would walk in the showroom, and I'd be doing something on a Lamborghini inside, and they would just be like, who is this? Is this your son? Like, right. To the owner or things like that. And be like, no, he's just our employee. But I think that definitely helped for me to, make an appearance, because now people know who I am. They know I work there, and they recognize me as, a professional detailer.
You said you got lucky, but there's a great quote that I want to bring up by Seneca, and it's, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. So, yes, you got lucky, but look at all the preparation that you took, and the opportunity presented itself, and you got lucky and got the car. And I love what you said. You used, you don't have to do 5 exotics a week for 12 years straight to call yourself efficient at exotics. One is plenty. And like you said, make sure you're documenting that, taking pictures, because especially when something like age, there's just no way you're going to get around that. Gosh, I would think, customer testimonials, pictures, anything. And like you said, now you're working at a shop, which just adds to your credibility. So, how did so you started just doing, did you get that one car from the club, the country club?
Yeah, I did. I actually ran into the guy through Reina, and I was there for an interview, and I was actually talking to him, and he was there getting his car serviced, which I thought was kind of funny. And I brought it up to him, and he just, was like, oh yeah, if you're applying here for a job, I think I'll let you do it. And I did. So that was kind of the big stepping stone, I think.
So
for me to.
you're going to school, working at a country club, working on starting your own detailing business, and you were interviewing for another job on top of that?
I was, yeah.
So tell us about that job, and that's kind of where you're at now, right? You still do cars on the side, but you are you the head of detailing there, or?
No, I am right behind another really great guy, Mike, who has been there for a few years now.
Okay.
And so I came kind of under his wing, and I've been working with him.
And what's that place called?
Reina International Auto.
Reina International Auto. And they do pretty much only exotics?
Yeah. Fair, I'd say probably 80% is Italian exotics.
So what's your role at Reina?
It started off, like the first day I came in, and he was like, all right, can you go take out the trash? And I was just thinking, oh my God, like this is going to suck. But I took out the trash and I came back in, and he tossed me the keys to a Gran Turismo. He was like, can you go clean this? And I was just like, yeah, I can go clean this. So I'm going back there. And
I've done one of these before.
Yeah, I've been here. And I detailed that car. And so most of the time I'm detailing cars, and then I also love, though, it's a good balance. I get to work in the shop, 20%, 30% of the time, and just the head mechanic there is a great guy, and he just kind of let me go under his wing. And whenever we don't have something to be done in the detail shop, I get to go in there and just help out with little small things. But it's just great to learn more about cars.
What have you learned working at the shop that you don't think you would have picked up as quickly working your own business?
Definitely just even the simplest things. Like, for instance, if someone wants a deep clean on their car where it's going to take me a few days, I'm going to jack up the car. I'm going to take all the wheels off. I'm going to, coat the undercarriage. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be cleaning everything in there in depth. And I think just like simple things like that, like the main jacking points for these expensive cars, like how to care for, how to change the oil on these cars, like just even little things like that have just greatly transformed like the way I do things now. Because
go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, because, if I wouldn't want somebody to let alone touch my expensive car, and then also, to jack it up, that's a huge risk. Mm-hmm. And even, like, most mechanics say, oh, that's the easiest thing in the world. Like, I don't even think about it anymore. But, I mean, if something goes wrong there, you are facing thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage.
It's even the simple things like, how do you start the car? Starting up a vintage, let's see, I'm trying to think. I worked at a exotic car lot a few years back, and it's like, some of these cars aren't just plug the key in and turn it on. Mm-hmm. Some of them are, but some of them aren't. Some of them even have a I'm going through a brain fog right now because I've been sick, but some of them have a choke. Mm-hmm. Some of the older cars got a choke that you got to pull, and it's like, not only getting it on a lift is one thing, just starting the car to get it over to the lift is a whole nother thing.
And I remember that we had this probably, I want to say, 60s pickup truck, like a classic, beautiful car. And this was a hot summer day, like I was in tons of people were outside in the parking lot, and I had to move this car. And I get in it, and I look like an idiot because I cannot start this thing. Right. And there's switches like underneath the dash that I didn't realize I had to flick to get this thing going. But even the classics, even a new Lamborghini, most of the people, you got to pull the paddle shifters back, put it in neutral, and then you got to wait for it to start, and then you got to start the engine and like things like that. So,
and it's kind of stuff like that making the jump from a minivan to an exotic is a lot more than just jumping from a minivan to an exotic. Mm-hmm. So let's see here. What are some of your name a couple of your favorite detailing products or your go-to detailing products, either in your own business or even at the shop as well?
I have a few. Probably one is definitely going to be Larry's ammo line, Larry Casillas' ammo line. I use a lot of that stuff, ammo foam. I'm always washing cars with that, and I definitely recommend anything that guy throws out there, you can take his word on it. And then also chemical guys, some people are very against them, and I've never encountered one problem with their products. I use their V line of polishes. That's an everyday thing for me. I'm always using that, and I get great results. The Roops, the Flex 3401, and the Torque FX, those are probably my three main polishers that I'm using. And then, wax, I'm kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
With, I got probably 10 or 15 different ones. It just depends on the car.
Right.
But
what are some tips you can give to someone? It seems like you've made the jump to exotics pretty quickly, and I'm sure the Country Club helped with that. But what are some tips that you would give someone out there who's trying to make that jump from minivans to exotics?
One, you have to have faith in yourself. Like when you see that first, sports car and you lay your hands on it, you can't freak out. Because the first car I cleaned, I was so hesitant to do anything, especially polishing. Like, I polished so many cars before I polished my first Maserati, but when I polished that Maserati, I was so careful. Like, I was terrified to even lay the polisher on the paint. And of course, nothing went wrong, but I'm still, I was just absolutely scared out of my mind. So you gotta kind of overcome that and fulfill, everyone can do it, if you have the passion and you have the knowledge to do it, but you definitely need to overcome that. And then another thing would be just research on what you're doing. If you can't just go out and buy detailed products and expect to know what to do. Right. I probably have at least 500-600 hours of videos that I've watched. I've practiced on everything I do. I practice on my car, test panels before I try out a new product. Like, you never want to go out and do something you've never done on a car that could, put you in a lot of trouble.
Is there anything other than working at the Country Club that you think helped get you into the exotics faster?
The Country Club, just talking with them, was a big thing. Raina obviously helped me really make that jump to exotics, because that was kind of like a normal thing for me there.
Okay.
And then, just really I'd go to drive around to, local Audi detailers or Audi dealers or like Mercedes-Benz and just talk to them and say, can I look at your paint or things like that? Okay. And, they're like, I guess, but...
And would you do demos there to try and promote your service, or what?
I went to Audi and they did let me, talk with them about it, and they showed me what they were doing to work on their cars, but I've never really done any full dealership partnerships.
Okay. Cool. So where do you see the future of, your kind of detailing career? Do you think that you're going to work at Raina for a while? Do you think are you there just to, and maybe don't answer this if you're still working there, but are you there just to gain experience and exposure, and you eventually want to own your own business, or is everything kind of up in the air, whatever comes toward you?
I think I joined Raina with the intent of exposure, but now it's become more of like a family, and especially in the past couple of months, I've gotten along with everyone very well. So I plan on staying there, throughout college. And after college, I haven't really decided. This summer, we're working on creating my own product line, so we'll see how that goes.
What's it going to be called?
I haven't decided yet. We'll see. But I think it's just kind of, I hope to go into chemical engineering and develop things there, and we'll see where it leads. I really don't have a set path on what I want to do yet.
That's right. You got time. You got plenty of time.
Yeah.
What other advice would you give to someone who is listening to this podcast, and maybe they're younger, maybe they're older, but they really want to get into the detailing space, and they really want to work on higher-end exotics? What advice would you give them to kind of get started?
Practice makes perfection, I think, and you can't just jump into cleaning a Ferrari. I mean, I can't tell you how many minivans or like how many times I had to deal with a chocolate bar under the seat or something like that. And at one point I was so done, just detailing crappy cars, like removing those like thick salt stains or things like that. But once you overcome that and you make yourself known, the exotics will follow.
Okay.
And I mean, I can guarantee it, because I never thought, like, I was detailing for about a year and I still had not even come close to touching an exotic car, and I was just like, oh my god, I cannot clean another soccer mom's car.
Right.
So I think my advice would just be, if you really want to do it, you just got to give it time.
Right.
And it will happen.
And keep, I love that, and keep working at it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. If people want to connect with you, how can they find you?
They can go to my website, which is www.autospatosa.com, and all my contact information is on there.
Is that Autospatosa, TOSA?
That is.
Perfect.com. All right, and I'll have all that linked up at autodetailingpodcast.com. You could just search Jeff into the search bar, and I will also link up your favorite detailing products with links for guys to purchase those if they so desire. Jeff, really appreciate you coming on the show today. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Auto Detailing Podcast. Head on over to autodetailingpodcast.com for full show notes, blog posts, updates, and sign up to our newsletter to receive the latest and greatest all things auto detailing podcast. And don't forget, if you're thinking about starting your own mobile auto detailing business, we've set up an online training course so you can bulletproof your startup at mobileautodetailingacademy.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.